I hope you're all doing well today. I'm happy to be here with you. It's the first meeting I'm doing now, and I'm so happy. The theme of our meeting today is knowledge in the shelter because I have a past experience of shelter. I was abused by my husband who brought me in the US. So by leaving him, I ended up in the shelter. So I had lived in the shelter for 4 years. So I would like today to share with you my experience in the shelter. So in the shelter, the first thing you have to do once you get in the shelter, you have been broken, you were abused physically, emotionally. You may feel like you are alone or you don't know nothing about your future, what you're gonna do or when you're gonna start living your own life. So the first thing for me, you need to know its resources. So for number one, you have to find good resources. Every shelter doesn't work in the same way. In some domestic violence shelter, you can have a lot of resources. You found a good orientation where you can find resources in order to find a way to educate yourself about safety, housing. There is a kind of different resources. So in my own experiences, you need to look for good resources. If a survivor doesn't find resources into the shelter, if you feel like you're not helping enough, so you can look for resources outside of the shelter. There are many organizations like Women for Success, Sanctuaries for Family, or Family Justice Center, where you can find resources for everything or one step you need to know. In shelter, you need to know about family courts because probably you're going to fight for the custody of the children if you have. So in Family Justice Center, they can help you, or Women for Success, they can orient you, help you to find lawyers, explain you about the system at family court, how to get an order of protection in order to protect yourself and your children to feel safe. So at one point inside the shelter, if you don't find help, you can ask for help outside of the shelter, because in my own experience, in some shelter, I found resources. In other shelter, I didn't, because I went to different shelter. So in some shelter, they have domestic violence group, supportive group, in which you can share your story, your experiences, your feeling with people who know, survivor like you, who know where you went through, who can understand you better because they went through the same situation as you. So it's not about like share your own personal stuff, but at least if you feel comfortable to share with those people, you can. In some shelter, they have like DV group support. It's more organized with people. They can you can talk about different subjects. How do you feel emotionally? You know, in other shelter, the group are differently made. In the shelter where I just got out, it was different. The DV group support was drawing, painting, or doing something like funny. Also, as a domestic violence survivor, you don't have to feel alone. So if you have family, you can share with your family your experiences, your feeling, because your family, your friends who really know you can understand you, remind you who you are really. When you went through abuse, sometimes you ended up broken. You don't know your quality, you don't know what you're good for, what you can do. It's really difficult to understand yourself, to do better, to find what you're good at. So if you don't find support, there is also counseling. You can find counseling inside the shelter or outside of the shelter. In my own experience, many women prefer to do counseling outside of the shelter because there they feel like more comfortable. They can feel the confidentiality because it's a different place where they don't live, where nobody know their whereabouts, so they can share your story or share their feeling. Doesn't mean that in all shelter people cannot get counseling, but shelters are different, organizations are different. In Safe Horizon, it's not the same as Sanctuary for Family Shelter. So if you don't find counseling to help you emotionally, you can have as a support your families, your friends also, or your community where you live in. There is also help for housing, jobs, application. In some shelters, people can help you, but for me, as an immigrant woman, it's more challenging because if you don't have family, it's going to be more challenging. So you need to find more support or orientation from through the shelter staff or through organization, because if you are immigrants, you were with your abuser, you don't know stuff about the country. You need to learn more or to find the good person who can give you more orientation or resources where you can find help for counseling, for maybe how to apply better for a job, or who can be a push for you, to move forward in your life. There is also a problem. It's more challenging. When I lived in the shelter for 4 years, it was the most common things I have observed in the case of women. More women in the shelter are low income. They need financial support, they need housing, they need everything. So I went through also myself. In case of housing, sometimes domestic violence survivor cannot get permanent housing because of their low income. In order to to resolve some situation or your case, you need just to have help from the housing specialist who can help you to apply or to send your document to different realtor or for your apartment application. But in the past, in my own experience, I have seen women who couldn't get housing due to not only for their low income, but because of their social conditions, like who didn't have work permits, who didn't have paper, who were undocumented, not because they wanted to or they enter illegally, but because of their abuser. Especially when you are immigrant, for him, in order to control you, he can leave you without paper. So you depend on him. You cannot seek for help. Most of the time, you don't know where you have to find help in order to apply for immigration. So if a domestic violence survivor feels is not getting help for housing, there is also Housing Connect where you can apply for housing. Housing Connect, you have to be careful, you need to apply according your income in order to do not get denied for housing once you get an interview because your income probably is low. So in shelters, it's better for survivor after being abused, after being broken, after being feel like nothing. It's also good to seek for help because if you feel like you're alone, you need to get help. Not give up on yourself, on your case because you were abused, because nothing didn't work like you wanted. It's not you are the responsible, you are only the victim, so you need to seek for help and assistance or support from domestic violence non-profit organizations such as Sanctuary for Family, as I said earlier, Family Justice Center, or Women for Success, and others. There you can meet people who can give a direction to your life, because nobody can in life, nobody can get success or go to the path on the path of success himself. There is always a push from home, support from home, from friends, from maybe government for certain people from the system, or you can at least find somebody, if if you're lucky, who can, like in certain organization, help you, push you in the way you can find an apartment, safe housing, you can find like assistance for your daily need with the children. So the domestic violence survivor doesn't need to feel alone, or to stay alone, or to isolate yourself. There is also a part of depression, you know. You can be depressed. I was depressed for more than a year. It was so bad. Depressed. I remember when my son was 3, I closed myself in the closet. I sit down in the closet. I cried. I cried every day. Only my therapist did. She understood, because she was hearing my voice, crying and crying. Sometimes she helped me. She took my son for like an hour. She just said, "You can have a time for you." So the doctor wanted to give me medication, but I didn't have medical health insurance, so I couldn't get medication because I couldn't afford it. So we should consider more needs of the survivor. Go through the healthcare system, you know. There is also a part of education or job. In the shelter, don't expect like your case manager. People will tell you everything you need to do. You need to shake up yourself. You need to think about yourself. You need to do something for yourself. So if you don't find resources in the same shelter, you can ask also, you can Google it, search for it, you can find resources. Most of the time, nobody's gonna help you. But I don't know about different shelter. You have to apply your job yourself. After being abused, you need to, the most important thing I think it's to stand up, like to keep your value, to really know who you are, identify your skill, and then do what you want, do the job you want to do. In terms of education, you need to apply for the job you want. No, not all shelters are like people who have the will to help you applying for job. If you don't know you're an immigrant, maybe you can ask for to your friends, or I don't know, family at school. In my own experience, I don't have family. The only family I have is my son. I'm alone. If I'm sick, I'm going just to pray. I'm going to pray just to feel better, take medication, because nobody is going to take care of my son. The only person I know is my abuser. Except my abuser, it's only you or the people in the shelter. So it could be a problem for an immigrant woman. So it's not like easy, but it's a long way where you have to stay, like to stand on your own value, know who you are, what you want for yourself, for your future, or your future of the children, if you have children. Immigration could be a barrier for many women abuser to seek for help. When I was abused, I was in fear. I couldn't call the police because of my studies. I couldn't call the police because of my immigration studies. I couldn't seek for help. I only seek for help when I was really, really abused. I felt in the point like, no, I have to leave or face my abuser. I don't know what is going to happen. I have to live with my son for my own safety. It's not easy for education. Education is expensive, but at least you can find a job. If you have a work permit, you're allowed to work in the US, you can find a job. You can save money and like plan about your education. For myself, I just know I have a dream. I want to go to college. But in the shelter, I didn't know. I was like walking 15 blocks to go to public library in East Side. So when I was moved into the West Side, I was like, I didn't know where I can find ESL classes because I wanted to learn English in my dream to go back to school. When I asked in the shelter if they have like they knew something. They said, no, they don't. I said, no, I'm so cool. I asked them if they could give metro card. They couldn't. So because of this, I stay at home doing nothing and thinking about my future. I didn't see a future coming, good things coming. I saw things negatively. So I was kind of depressed and worried, anxious about what is going to happen to me, where I'm going. So the only thing I can do in the point of education, job, is to stand up for your dream. Having a good attitude. Nobody taught me like, be positive, have a good attitude. Because even if things still like the night is there, it doesn't mean like that the day is not coming. You know, when you are working in like a tunnel of darkness, just keep going. Even though you don't see nothing, going, keep up. But I didn't know that. I was crying, and even the way I can say, yes, I was so sad. So the only advice I can give to a survivor is to do not give up. Never give up. Be always positive. Even though you can experience negative things, see nothing happen to you, nothing good, your abuser is doing well, and you find yourself in the situation, just try to turn things positively. Find your happiness, a balance between your hardship and happiness. Also, make sure that you can get certification, apply for a job. People will say, hey, you have to work hard to change your life, work hard, but it's not only about work hard. If you have children, you need to find a secure childcare, you know? So every woman victim of domestic violence cannot find safe childcare because some cannot afford it, others they do, but through HRA. But what about the migrants, the migrant women who are undocumented or in the process of VAWA? She can because the HRA would deny it, you know, the application for childcare. Locally, New York State is approving childcare. They have different programs like early childhood or, yeah, that's 3K, affordable to everybody. It's really a great help for women. Also, if you live in the shelter, you need to find some orientation. Shelter workers or organization always have good person, the person you know at school, classmates, or you know, friends can give you like orientation in order to find resources to know where you're going or where you can apply for help or apply for a job. If there is an opening position, you can apply for it. So the point before the end, spend your time wisely in the shelter. You left your abuser, you find yourself in the shelter. Don't just stay in the shelter. The shelter doesn't determine your situation, your ability to be who you are or what you dream for. You must do activity that empower you, yourself. It could be drawing, it could be like you go hang out with friends, you know, activities that make you happy, where you can get like happiness, joy, peace, and even self-confidence. Number two, I think the most important thing is greet yourself again. You don't believe in love, you don't believe either to yourself because your abuser puts you down for. He can recognize you have good qualities, you're a good person, but he's gonna take advantage of you. Abuser, he knows the victim, he studies you, he knows your weaknesses, your strength. He can even know that you're better than him, or you can better than him, but in order to break you, like to break you down or to stop your dream, beat you or abuse you sexually, could be verbally, emotionally, or physically, even mentally. So that's the most important step. to recognize your value, your identity, your weaknesses, and what you are good at. It could be you can identify your skills, your qualities, in order to gain self-confidence and achieve your dream or what you want. Also, you must celebrate every achievement. Any step you do, celebrate, because it's not, even if you haven't reached your dream, but you can at least celebrate what you're doing. So for myself, I was not worried. I didn't celebrate anything. Even if it was good, I didn't do that. So bring back your personal power. Know who you are. I'm a woman. I'm powerful. Where is your power? To be a woman. Because around the world, if you see through different culture, it's like women are the second. Women are weak. People saw like women are as a weak, more than men. We are paid less, Even where I grew up, like some people say that the place of women are in the kitchen. Oh wow, that's so bad. So feel powerful yourself. And my last point is, during the time you are in the shelter, goals of women survive in the shelter, fund permanent housing, fund apartment. But it's not the only goal we should, as women, have. Be happy, fund an apartment. In the shelter, you have to think about your education. Education is more important because that can improve or change your social life. If you can get job training, get it. If you can finish your high school diploma, get it. If it's college, go back to college or get more certification. Dream bigger, stay stronger to achieve your dream. You're not the result of the abuse. You may feel broken or not good at doing something, but you are who you are. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that was really powerful. Yeah, statement.
It's my pleasure. Like always, I said, you are amazing. You are empowered already. And that's why every single time when I met you, I told you, your life changed at the time when we met. And it's a pleasure for Women for Success. And welcome again. And thank you so much for everybody. And I'm so happy to hear your experience and where you are right now. Thank you, Jimantha.
How many shelters you've been to, you said?
I have been in 5 because, yeah.
You have 5 shelters?
Yeah, during 4 years. Because the first one, I was transferred like in a family shelter, just in emergency shelter. I spent like 1 month and I got transferred into a family shelter. So there, when my husband showed up, because the problem was like my abuser, he didn't stop even though I left his house, he like following me. He used the visitation, family code visitation, and then he's going to hide and follow me till where I live, and he was so manipulator. One day he followed me and then he knew where I stay. So once he showed up, like a year later, I got moved into another temporary shelter for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and then I got moved into a domestic violence shelter again. Then after 6 months, 5 months, I got moved into the shelter where I was.
Wow. My initial image of a shelter is like you are not supposed to tell you are in shelter or the address of shelter. Of course.
Yes.
And then I felt like you are not even supposed to go out to enjoy yourself, but just seeing in living in a shelter. But that's not true, right? You said that you should go to a library, you should go to see friends.
You know why I say it? Because being a domestic violence shelter, sometimes you can feel like you're not free. It's not like you are in your own house where you can bring your friends, your family, or go and just come back the next day. You need to come back at a certain time. You're not allowed to spend time with your family. You can feel after 6 months, 1 year, you can feel like you are in prison. You don't feel free. You have to sign the night your presence paper every day. So I signed it for 4 years. Last year I was feeling like this is too much. I can't. So that's why for myself I gave up. I was crying. What kind of life is this? So I learned a lesson, like I lost more time by figure out how to get out, but I didn't. Cry, feel sad, because that wasn't like the thing I want. So in order to feel happy, to do not get anxious, worry, depressed, you need to feel happy, to go outside, enjoy yourself. At least I don't have my own apartment, but I need to be happy. I need to meet people. I need to find friends. And I need also, the most important thing is your achievements. It could be professional, it could be education. To do not like find yourself after 1 year, 4 years in the shelter, you get out, you find an apartment that you don't have certificate, you have nothing, you know? Yeah, that was.
I have a second question. Sorry, I feel like a greedy here. I heard from somebody that you can't get the job easily if you don't have an address. Like a shelter, you can't say the address. So how does it work?
That was a problem for me. You can get a job, but it could be complicated because the shelter prohibits you to give your address. If you do, I remember I got a problem in a shelter before the one I left. I made a police report. My husband harassed me. I made a police report. The police, because he violated the order of protection, the police wanted to arrest him. So they asked me for the address. I thought maybe it's the police. It's safe. I can give the address at least. It's the police. I gave once. Week later, the police showed up at the shelter. I got trouble with the shelter. Yeah, they were upset. But my case worker, she was like genuine. She understood like I didn't know. So I got trouble because of the police. They leave me because it was the police. But if it was somebody else, I got kicked out, because it's like you expose other residents. Wow. You expose them. Yeah, it's really, really prohibited. And the last part was, I need my son, the DO, Department of Education, gave iPad for all students to study in New York. So once the iPad gets turned off for no reason, he has a new iPad, but he didn't have a Wi-Fi. So in the shelter, they didn't have Wi-Fi in room, like in an apartment. So once I called the Spectrum or something else, like to, I need a Wi-Fi. They asked me for the address. They couldn't come because it's confidential. So he spent like 4 days without doing class, and I contacted the school. They resolved the problem. So it was like this. It's kind of, when you go to find a job, you need to put, usually they use the PO box, you need to put this, but sharing the address, you can get trouble with this.
My question is, how are you feeling at the time when someone came to you and tried to help you?
First, I'm a shy person, yes. I didn't speak like publicly, even speak with you. At first I was stressed. But I never felt like uncomfortable to seek for my own well or to ask for. Like, it's not like, hey, can you help me? No, I won't do that. But I never felt uncomfortable to open to anybody who wants to help me, like share my feeling the way I feel. So when you saw me, I was really, really hopeless. I was hopeless. I was depressed. I didn't feel the pleasure in life, like to do something. I stayed home. I just go outside to do the class, pick up my son, go home, or go outside, buy groceries, that's it. Go at the back, no. I was crying every day. I felt hopeless because I felt like I lost everything, felt broken, humiliated, because my husband, even in your intimate life, he reminded me like I'm nothing. So at this time you met me, I felt broken. I felt like I don't have value. I'm nothing, and at the same time I was thinking like, why shouldn't I go back to my country? I remember I have a friend in Africa, in a different country. I contact my friend, can I stay, come back and stay in your country? Because if I go back to my country, what I'm gonna do without a diploma? The thing that kept me in the US was my dream, go back to school. When I met you, I didn't have friends. I locked myself in the unit every day except drop my son at school. I felt hopeless without anybody, shame. I carry like the shame of myself, of my mistake. That's how I felt. I didn't want to share. I felt like I was nothing.
Thank you so much. This is a perfect occasion for you to be celebrating your achievement. You come to the presentation, Tala, and you be the, great voice for the survivor. It's really like occasion for celebration, I would say. It was very rich session. Thank you so much.
And powerful.
Yeah, very, very, very. So celebration, you accomplished. Yes.
Cheers.
Yeah. Thank you very much.